Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Great Awakening Generator. I am Rose McNair, and today my amazingly wonderful guest is Leslie Shankman. Hello, Leslie.
Hello, Rose. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Well, you're so very welcome here. And everyone, Leslie, I'll tell you what she's doing at the moment. She's an ambassador and guide for the stellar nations or stellar consciousness, right? I said that right. Did I say it right?
That's a good way to say it, right?
Well, Leslie, so as I was saying before we went to recording, that I need to welcome you onto our space according to my guides, and they've given me a few messages for you as well. So everyone, if you will bear with us, we have to do this, and we have to do this in the recording because Leslie is an amazing lady, and she has been faithful to her calling, and that must be honored in this time and space. So, yeah, makaforakai na talalala ho. Sorry, I had musicians mode off. When we sing, we need to have musicians mode on. Karamaki to forana hai to corona hai la machotana hai to forana hai. Namaha. He holo hai kafia. Koala malolo hai. Kora me ali ho for ha. Yero maho ngiraho. Right. Kira toto whanahai. Thank you, Leslie. Koromakia.
Thank you.
I hope that yera makoto, that we the codes from that, the meaning of that will come through to you. They have been downloaded, and I know that you will process, and perhaps some things will occur to you from this afterwards that you would have thought, oh, I think it's probably because I got those codes. Right.
Thank you.
Today, you're very welcome. Today, we got for you that I need to tell you this. Yes, there is. So it's this card here from the unicorn. Sorry about the light. Let's see if we get it there. There we are. And it's interesting because you've got the light, you've got the unicorn, and you've got this beautiful violet flame light coming through. And there is a tree in the background. There are some creatures that look like woodland creatures in there. And the message, if I'll take it away for a second. Oh, there's also an owl in the picture, Leslie. Can you see if I hold it better down there? It looks like you could see an owl in the picture.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It's the number 26 card, which numerology is 8, which is a number of balance. And it says, invoke the cosmic diamond violet flame, transmute all that is not love. That's what you're doing. I believe.
Wow.
And then the other card that was really for you is, I couldn't make this stuff up at all, because initially it was the rainbow dragon that flew out of the, so that deck of cards, by the way, everyone, is from the Magic of the Unicorn Oracle card deck by Dinah Cooper. This one is from Beyond Lemuria, and you got the that is the rainbow dragon. And you know what? Interestingly enough, the card is called Radical Expansion. And that is what you're doing. These are affirmations, confirmations. I believe you've part of my radical expansion, by the way, all that you're doing
Thank you.
currently.
It's nice to hear.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the one that's really stuck out to me, oh my gosh, I can't make this up, is this card from the Oracle card deck. It's called Our Ancient Future. You know, and
How
it says,
appropriate.
it's very appropriate. So I just feel like this is all coming through, and it's like, this is wisdom from indigenous peoples. This is a synopsis of that card. Wisdom from indigenous peoples, ancestors holding the keys for the future, ancient remembering, bloodlines, how the past affects the future, a time to step up, timeless power symbols, activations for powerful shifts. Oh, so everyone, when we as we go through this conversation today with Leslie, you will find out why all those cards were so appropriate because of what Leslie is doing in the universe right now. Because I say universe, it's not just on Earth, but other communities are tapping you on the shoulder and saying, way to go, daughter of the universe. Yeah, way to go. You are fulfilling, you have come to the planet, and here you are in your space doing the thing that you have come to do. Right, Leslie, please.
Be still my heart, Rose. Thank you.
Well, I am an ambassador for the universe. Recently, I heard broadcaster of the fifth dimension. And so I think normally some of the things that comes through the light language and the messages I get when I'm tuning in is to support my part on the planet, is to support every one of you that is doing what you're doing. So that's me fulfilling my purpose. So thank you for saying that. Leslie, tell us about you. I mean, gosh, we'll talk about the stellar nations very shortly, but please tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, your life. Leslie, the lady, the woman.
Okay. I'm a very normal person, born in the 50s, but we started coming in the 50s, especially with en masse with certain colored code flames each decade, because the collective had done a cry out in 1887 asking there to be another fate alternative beside an apocalyptic. And so it took about 100 years of all kinds of planning. That's in some of the Stellar Nations materials. But at any rate, especially starting in the 50s, we started coming in mass, which was sort of a different thing because in the past, often an avatar would come in or one teacher. But now because especially welcoming in the Aquarian age, where we're going into everybody being unique, but yet working as a whole, we needed to put that prototype down.
Yes.
So anyway, coming in the 50s was kind of odd. It was kind of like being born on a linoleum floor under fluorescent lights.
Okay.
So I feel very ordinary, but I feel like that's part of my task and maybe part of the 50s. Like we sort of came into this very boxy reality, and we had no clue or no allies about what was really inside of us. And yet we were to walk through that muck and sort of feel it and find it.
Yes.
So I'm just saying I'm one of those. And, the 60s had a different violet flame. So it's come throughout. So anyway, myself, though, I'm going to be in my 7th decade on June 13th coming up. And I've just had a funny life where every decade I've done something different. It's just like a bell went off. So, I was real corporate at first because I was supposed to be, right? The 50s.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Well, I mean, it wasn't, by then it was the 70s, but
that's right. Yeah, 50s was very much 50s housewife. That would have probably been mom. Your mom would have been a 50s housewife. Yeah.
Right. Then I ran off to a yoga ashram after that one, for 5 years and got a whole other perspective. And then I became a mother. Then I did a lot of businesses of my own because it's hard to work for other people. But at 50, I got a very virulent cancer, and it was in my sacral chakra, and it was really about, do I want to stay on Earth or not? Because I was really not, I sort of experienced this whole God force as like a cat that plays with you, and I didn't think it was a very friendly universe. So my cells were responding to that.
Okay.
And in my whole creative center. And it was virulent and supposed to not go away and all that. But I had a 10 and a 12-year-old at that point, and it was just like, I had to pull on something. But really what I had to pull on, and the deepest healing, was that I've been getting messages for my whole life, but I would never believe them. So when I finally started doing that, it took about a year and all different things, but it actually totally left. I mean, all the doctors were surprised, and I never got it back because it was a type that doesn't go away. Anyway, long story short there. So that was starting my, I guess my 5th decade. And so what do I do now? Well, I adore older people. I was so close to my grandmother. She was the one person I actually felt a connection with. and I had just been through like feeling like I might die. So I went through a decade of working with older people.
Yes.
And it was really a beautiful thing for me because it grounded me deeply with their acute needs. I could be very present, but I am naturally transcendent. And then I got a place to be transcendent and guide them into their death. I always stayed with someone until they died. You know, sometimes it would be 6 years.
Yes.
So I'd have all these like older friends and I never advertised. I just got them. Seemed so karmic and beautiful. But at the end of that, when I got near when I got into my early 60s, I felt like, well, it's funny because I never would leave those people because we were I tied into them so emotionally, but 3 of them died in a row. And I
Okay.
just was like, and then I was kind of free. And all this palliative care was coming into our area, like in death awareness and death cafes. And that would have been natural for me. But my inner self said, no, you have a new room to open. And also, being with all those people dying, I mean, it's such an incredible thing to have a soul kind of clear up and go so freely.
Yeah.
And I really had a chance to work with people in a way where a lot of them could do that. Um, I was so like, oh, my question, like for a year or two was, how can I be a boundaryless self? How can I be a boundaryless self?
Yeah.
So I think that's what attracted the Stellar Nations to me in 2013, which is just like when I finished. Well,
Wow.
everybody died in 2012. I was looking for something else. I got called into 4 more deaths in 2013, and it was a hard year for me. I think it was my second Saturn return. Anyway, long story short, I found the Stellar Nations, and then I was asked to lead a group locally. Then I was asked to start editing their books. I just feel I have a very close soul affinity with the two.
Yes.
I wouldn't even call them authors because it's not like these write these books. They attune
Yeah,
into,
they channel the books.
I don't even know if channeling is the right word because
Okay.
they literally attune their consciousness. It's not like it's out there and it comes through. It's like we're all one, and they move their consciousness like as if you were tuning into a
Ah,
radio
right.
dial, and then they become perceptually reading that field. So, but this is Dr. Beatrix Ceziel and Aniko
Yeah.
Gresco, who are very close souls, and they've worked in their earthly incarnations since Lemurian times, always with stellar consciousness.
Okay.
In Lemurian times, Dr. Beatrix was the founder of the Island of the Stars, because Lemuria was 133 different islands, and they had different purposes. And the Island of the Stars was eye-shaped, just like Alcyon, and
Yes.
it had a lot of purposes, but specifically the Island of the Stars was integrating and weaving in stellar consciousness with the Earth plane and doing a lot of work with the Pleiades as well. There was a
Yes.
lot of healing that had to happen
Yeah.
to the seven sisters, to the female
Yes.
prototype.
Yes.
So
Right.
yeah, so
Yeah.
they've been doing that. And I think they're in their early 50s, 54 now. They're both born in 68.
Yes.
Anyway, they're out of Hungary now. This is interesting. When the Lemurian island of the stars fell into the sea, the etheric energy lines from it went up through the earth and came out on the opposite side, which is the Carpathian Basin in Hungary, which is also kind of eye-shaped like
Yes.
Alcyon.
Okay.
So it was planted there that at this time of remembering, which is what we're into now with the photon belt, that they would bring forth stellar consciousness again. So they've always been about that. They've been doing that. Beatrix is actually an MD. She was 20 years old and had a car accident and actually died. And out of the body, exuberant, saw herself laying there, was shown a bunch of light packages and said, if you go back to your body, this is the work you can do. And she said, with the enthusiasm of a teenage, she jumped in her body. But she then continued in medical school, which was very hard because the gates never closed for her after that. she can see to the roots of everything. To go into with a stethoscope was kind of like, so she also became a homeopath, but her true calling always has been, even as a child, she wanted to work on pain and things from the roots. And but then over time, all her understanding and memories of being such a stellar ambassador really
Yes.
has
Yeah.
come back to her.
Okay.
And Nico also worked with her in Lemuria. I mean,
Yes.
back then you would live 500 to 700 year lifetimes and have several of
Yes.
them.
Yes.
So
Yes.
anyway, they're doing their work, and I do feel like when I met their work, it came to me in 2013. And as I think as a response to how do I be a boundaryless self?
Right.
Because honestly, to know the stellar nations is to be grounded in boundlessness, which is incredible
Yes.
because it's, well, now that we're getting all this information, we're in the photon belt. It's like if we understand this stuff, we have this expanse of place to fill out what's coming in.
Yes. Yes.
So perhaps I should explain a little bit about the stellar nations. Oh, since just
Yeah.
for me, I mean, what's happened, I became a local teacher of it. I started editing their books into better English.
Yes. Yes.
I've done multiples of them and well, that sort of thing. And I've
Yeah.
done
Yeah.
classes and teaching. And
Yeah. So that
so,
was going to be my next question about, because you flowed into the stellar nations, and that's awesome because it's like you can't not talk about it, right? Because you
mhm.
can't, it seems like whatever we are asking, it comes back to stellar nations, right? So please, we're at this point where tell us what. So I so for everyone's benefit here, before we go into this, I'm just going to give a little bit of backstory, a small bit of it. I came because I've been doing the dragon invocations for the last year on my channel, and or channels, I should say, because I have a little one as well, where I've been doing light language with the dragons and just bringing it forth. I had an activation for my dragon self last year without realizing it, and then I started doing it. And so for whatever reason, well, I suppose maybe because I was doing that on my YouTube feed, I suddenly had this video being presented by somebody called Stellar Nations. I thought this is an interesting channel, and what was on the thumbnail was the picture of the dragon and a panther, I think, or a feline. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I'll come back to it. And then I started to listen, and I thought, whoa, this is amazing, because this is where you're talking about the dragon of correct me if I say the wrong word. You're talking about the dragon wars, and with the felines. I think this is one of them. It's before. It's a video after the one you did about the felines, and then I thought, oh, my friend Emma Liston would love this because she has grown up with the consciousness of a dragon consciousness uh, from the time she was quite young. And so I sent it to her, and she listened, and she couldn't stop listening. And she came back to me and she said, Rose, oh, this is amazing. I'm just lapping this up. This is like, wow, this is exactly, it feels so natural for me. It's like the next step that I have to take in my learning. And I thought, well, that's great, Emma. I'm glad I sent it to you. But for me, I was taking longer to absorb the information because uh, it made me feel again like when I was listening to Barbara Marciniak in those years
Mhm.
ago, because I started listening to Barbara Marciniak in 2013. And, there was often where I would listen to her and I'd have to sort of pause, process, rewind, and hear it again because, I have a strong Pleiadian connection. And that was my, I suppose, big shift into my galactic self when I started listening to it. And I felt, well, okay, I'm on the brink of something big, because it felt like that when I had to stop, process, listen, rewind, go and do that kind of thing. And I thought, no, wow, because of the dragon um, video, I felt connected, and I felt, oh, we need to talk to Leslie about the dragons. Little did I know, though, that I was walking into something that said, well, Rose, it's not just about the dragons. It's about, I don't know, maybe so many other things. And then I was like, wow, where have you been all my life? And I really needed to have you on the channel to talk about this. So please tell us from that perspective. I would like you to launch into telling us about the stellar nations, about, I know you say they're not authors, but we'll call them authors for the moment because
Yes,
Beatrix
it's a good.
and Aniko, the authors there, Hungarian, like you were saying, and I am eternally grateful for the translation to English. And I know that you are the one responsible for that. I understood that correctly, that the translations come from you. Is that
Well,
right?
no. They've been put in English, and I've just, except for the actual Stellar Nations book, which came out in 2012,
Yes.
I've had the privilege of going through them and crafting them into better English because they're
Okay. Okay.
not always in great English when you get
Right.
their esoteric ideas, the
Yeah.
sentence structures, and they don't
Yeah.
come across as that readable. Um, so no, but I've become an ambassador for it as far as, yes, teaching it
Yes.
and guiding. Um, from, to I mean, they're very much influential in Central Europe, and there's a
Okay.
large following and understanding there, especially out of Slovakia and Czechoslovakia.
Okay.
But no, as far as the US and the English speaking, but what happened is, so they've worked with,
Leslie, one question before you move
yeah.
away from that. You said something about having groups. So do they have people getting together in groups and talking about the stellar nations? Is that something that's happening?
Well, since the beginning, since the 90s, they've always had a group of steadily pretty of about 120 and 30 who meet locally, although there's a lot more.
Yeah.
And so because Bay and Anaco have gotten constant stellar information, they worked largely with the Pleiades up until 2003 and 4, although they heard from Sirius and Orion.
Yeah.
But what this whole thing in 2005, the 13 delegates of the stellar nations came to them. It was a whole different consciousness.
Okay.
It comes from the star. The information comes from the star Antares, which is a
Yeah.
seventh dimensional star, and they were very attuned to working with the fifth dimensional consciousness. But even for them, it was a whole different thing. They had to have their pineal glands adjusted, and they got a lot of help with it.
Yes. Yes.
But they were told by the delegates of the stellar nations. Now, this is 2005,
Yeah.
and this is just when, in 1999, if we follow the Mayan calendar, the galactic underworld was planted. That only has if you look at the galactic or the Mayan tombs, you know how they have the levels going up.
Yes. Yes.
But the broadest level is, I mean, they're all constantly ongoing, but they represent consciousness and the development of consciousness. So, the first one I think is largely biological. But 1999, the second to the top was introduced, which was galactic consciousness. And we started to come into the photon belt. And
Yes.
that had a shorter period. I mean, it's ongoing, but it ended around 2011, 12, and then we went into universal
Yes.
consciousness. And
Yes.
now that's what we're doing. But in 2005, it was the half part of, in other words, the seed was planted in 1999 of galactic, and it's like it takes 50% of the time for it to start to break
Yeah.
ground.
Yeah.
So it broke ground into our collective consciousness, because I remember looking at Time magazine, and the cover was "We Are One," all that was coming
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
So anyway, they were approached then by the stellar delegates because it was time for us to bring in the larger understanding that we have a cosmic history, and that basically what they were asked to do for about 18 months, they kept expanding out to the star Antares,
Yes.
because the records of the Milky Way the galaxy, the cosmic history, are held in sound frequencies there. And they learned the story that, well, they were also approached by 13 masters of one of each of the stellar nations. And we're talking about things that we know in our beings. We're
Yes.
talking about unicorns as creators and dreamers. We're talking about angels. We're talking about Pegasus as messengers. We're talking about dolphins as healers, whales as messengers and healers, birds,
Yeah.
male and female serpents, so bears. And what these are basically is light seals. Each nation is a light seal. It's an energy pattern.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were shown in the galactic history that the creator in this creation cycle, well, on a spirit gave creation options on a spirit level to be Holy Spirit, angel, or cosmic human. And
Yes.
then we carry soul codes and body codes.
Yeah.
Anyway, I could take too long
I,
explaining
I
this.
know, I understand, and
Yeah.
because I've been listening to your interviews with David Farrell, and I understand. I know exactly how it goes. What I want to say is, so let's come back to the in simplicity. Explain to us the stellar nations. I know that that is their third book, I think, the stellar nations. Or this is
Yeah,
when
that's
they.
the one they were told to put that came out in Hungarian after they finished their 18 months. It's interesting. They did that journeying and the recording, and then the whole thing just sort of swooped out into those Hungarian books
Yeah.
in like 6 weeks. And
Right.
they published it, and it got a
Yes.
finding. To answer your question, their group, what I was starting to say is, especially since the Stellar Nations has come in, uh, their group, there's constant, these are living forces, they're parts of us, because really the stars are sentient beings. They are worlds, literally approachable. We do live on them. Our soul aspects live on them. So
Yes.
that's exactly, they have something called an Antares Code,
Yes.
and that is when we come down into this incarnation, our larger light body is going to come into a physical distillate. It gathers the soul particles. It wants to, create some kind of blueprint or plan for what it wants to learn in the physical, but gathers it around us as a big matrix of energy on all these levels. We come through the ethereal birth canal. We're born with this remembering field around us. We've always had it, but the time now, we're coming into a time where, because of the photon belt and because of where we are in the evolution of everything, because we've just finished 3 huge galactic cycles. I mean, we're talking millions of years, but
Yes.
they're
Yes.
concurrently finishing. So we're ready to be taken up on a kind of another level of the spiral arm.
Yes.
And what we're coming out of is the age of discovery, which happened with light and shadow with the polarities. And we're moving into the age of self-mastery and co-creation. But
Yes.
we have to learn from this stage. We have to learn the way I really feel the stellar nations is each one of those as a light seal. The creator gave it as a way to experience, and said to cosmic humans, I am an inert source. These are my ideas. You go out and be my experiencers. And I'm going to give you these 13 energy matrices, essentially, and you're to be chalices for them and use them and go to the extremes of the shadow to find the depth of the height of the light and bring your experiences back to me. But you're a chalice for all these different 13 stellar nations, which are, when we start really feeling them, they're just ways that we
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
They're relational patterns, actually. So when these came out, Bay and Aniko heard the sound frequencies, but of course, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
So they fleshed into myth after that. They fleshed
Okay.
into these galactic myths, which
Right.
is, so you're following like each stellar nation through a series of stars, a stellar pathway, which are points of consciousness. And each part of us, like the teacher part, the bear souls are teachers of the heart of Christ consciousness. The male serpents are teachers of knowledge, or the Kabbalah, the tree of life.
Yes.
And each part of us is, as we've developed as consciousness, we've engaged with these 13 stellar nations because they're literally like the stuff of galactic DNA. There are
Yeah.
galactic DNA,
Yeah.
but we've engaged with them in different ways. Now, the thing is, the human at one point had this mission of being a chalice for all of them, pushed them all out,
Okay.
because the human was given, I mean, the human is one of the 13 nations, but the human had that feeling, was given great privileges to be a co-creator, control of the elements, just like the dragons,
Yes.
started feeling very superior. Because the whole story here is, because we were charged with going into shadow to learn the light, the whole story is where do the temptations come in each nation? And it's interesting because I've really come to feel, in embodying this over time, each nation or light matrix, if you really feel into it, is just kind of a different experiment with how to be spirit and matter. And the dragons, oh my gosh, incredible strength of matter
Yeah.
with so many gifts of spirit. 8 virtues of the dragon. There's 8 initiations. The first 4 are total mastery of the elements, because as a dragon is, well, a dragon is a warrior part of us
Yes.
that was assigned to guard divine will and divine order.
Wow.
So was giving great gifts, needed to learn mastery of fire, earth, air, and water, because they
Yes.
use those forces to create and to destroy. But then it also means, what is the metaphysical application of fire, the determination, the
Yes.
will,
Yes.
of water, your emotions, of air, the thoughts. But at any rate, um, the fifth initiation is the balance of all motion, right? So that is like really what we're being asked to do, is to go to a place where we can be like just a vessel for creation to run through. And we
Yeah.
can,
Yeah.
we can, but we had to learn, what are the consequences if if you're learning very, or living very experientially, especially in a dense third dimension with all these temptations. But
Yeah.
I shouldn't say just in the third dimension, because all these patterns of kind of having gifts, needing to explore the shadow, so let's say lapsing or going into exploring free will, realizing, surrendering, letting yourself be carried back, which is where we are now. We can't even I don't think we can understand the depth of surrender that we're kind of that's necessary, but we're figuring it out, I hope.
We certainly are.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that the environment or the world doesn't have to get, as so extreme to make us surrender. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah. The last few years have been something in terms of, we've had to look at ourselves. We've had to look at the shadows, not just out there, but within. And
well, and that exactly leads to what I haven't gotten to yet. Since 2008, there's been kind of a divine plan where a stellar nation came in, the energy of it came into the collective consciousness
right.
1 year at a time, because there were certain further stories that Bay and Anako didn't even get initially. They were shown further stars as our consciousness was ready
Yes.
to open to them.
Yes.
And they're more of the lapse patterns. And you can really look at this in our earthly outpicturings and what's happened
Yes.
in societies since
Yeah.
then. But so their groups, there's continually new message. It's just like Lemurian times for them, where you're getting stellar impulses and you're grounding them into the earth plane. So their
Mm.
group would meet for a day or two at a time, like every 6 weeks,
Okay.
for all day long. And then the stellar messages would be something that would be shown to them by Bay and Anako. They have countless meditations on their website. Some of them
Yeah, I
are in
saw
English.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a lot of those are what come out of the stellar messages, that they do specific work
Yeah.
in specific years for
Hmm.
specific days. So what they're doing is they're literally taking through their physical body and anchoring these stellar impulses.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
why you caught the dragon video from me is, in 2024, we're in the year of the return of the dragon and the great feline, which means a lot. I mean, we've
Yes.
been the year 2020, when a lot broke out of the gate. I mean, we had the huge oppression with COVID, but a lot of people just really woke up. And yes, perhaps it was in contrast to that constriction. That was an incentive, but there was something inside. And that was the incoming of the, it was the year of the whales and the redemption of the fallen angel.
Wow.
And 3 stars were revealed that year that showed that our collective consciousness understood surrender, could get its multidimensional awareness back, let's call it angel wings, could find our original divine destiny, which is in our hearts. It's actually our own highest intention of the light. I mean, when we hear it called divine will for us, a lot of us go, oh, no, I like
Yeah.
free will.
Yeah.
But the ironic part, it's divine will is the highest intention of the light inside of us that we put there ourselves in the beginning.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's our divine destiny. And when we align with that, life just changes. It's
Yeah.
no longer polarity really. But what happened in the 2020 is that that third star that was discovered was that we could realign with our divine destiny and then get a second seal of destiny, which would be to be able to sustain, or at least see, hold, and start to learn to sustain a 5th or 6th higher consciousness that aren't polarized, and that we'd be able to be a living bridge from that kind of consciousness back to the 3rd dimension. So we realized that collectively, and a lot of people who were coded for that woke up to it. And we've
Yes.
seen it. It's just
Yeah.
out of the gate since then.
Yeah.
So that's the whole point. We do come in with these remembering fields. We do create these blueprints. And what knowing your stars and your Antares code is the blueprint of stars that you designed for yourself in this incarnation. And it comes through an astrological radix. It's not really astrological, but it's like the backlighting of and it tells the story of your ongoing consciousness a little bit more than just your incarnation. At any rate, where was I going with that? I'll let you ask a question because I lost my train.
Right. So there's a few things that I said we would talk about, and thank you for bringing in the Antares Code, and I'm going to come back to that very shortly. So in a sentence, the stellar nations, actually, I said the wrong year. I think it's 2007 that Stellar Nation Soul Families, the Cosmic History Chronicles of the Milky Way Galaxy was released, was written or released, right, or published.
That's when it was pulled into its written form.
Yeah.
In Hungary, they anchored all the stellar consciousness around in trees.
Okay.
We did that. 12 of us visited Hungary in 2018, and they asked us to go back. We came back to the United States and anchored it in 4 places.
Awesome.
The 13 stellar nations. And they asked us to do it on August 17th, which is the anniversary of the harmonic convergence, which is in 1987 when the fate alternative of ascension dropped in as a parallel possibility to the apocalyptic one.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
And we've been running strong since then. Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. That's great. Thank you for explaining that. So the Stellar Nation Soul Families book is about the 13 stellar nations in the universe, in our universe. Do I understand that right? Because if I look at the galactic map, there is that constellation of Cygnus. There is that constellation of Draco, or there's the whale constellation. There's,
Right.
I look up at the sky at night and I can see the whale constellation over me. That's and
Can you? Because
yes,
really,
I can.
we don't know. It's actually the constellation, the truth. A lot of times, what we think are constellations in our Western minds, they go to cosmic history, and it's like, no. So the whale is the true constellation of those southern skies over New Zealand and Lemuria.
Yeah.
Wahaha. But that's not necessarily in our, it may be where you live because you're so, connected to it kind of in a rooted way. And you
Okay.
have a memory. But they had to actually look under like little pieces of constellations that most
Wow.
Western mind thinks are there, and
All
said
right.
no. Just
Ah,
like with the cat, like we think there's a telescope and a peacock star. No, there's a huge Black Panther there. You know, there's many
yeah.
like truth. Like
Yeah.
we see Asclepius with the man holding the
Yes.
rod and the snakes. Ah, underneath that's the goddess riding the Kundalini snake. She's holding the head high towards the galactic center.
Wow.
Her yoni is on the on the snake. She's riding it that way. She's casting down into creation, the Kundalini energy. But the story in
Wow.
cosmic history is that well, yes, they came out in 2007. Well, 2008 to 2021 was a very prescribed divine plan of the year, because we weren't syncing with the timing of humanity, wasn't staying abreast of the timing of how the galaxy was progressing.
Yeah.
So we almost got like a time loop put on us, and then these opportunities for these nations to come through. And Bay and Anacal were told to do a whole ritual at the end of 2007. And for the first time, they were to ask very broadly. They had to get 3,333 people at least who could hold a certain kind of space at the end of that year, so that those people were kind of realigning with the Holy Spirit and their own destiny, and it provided an anchoring point so that the divine plan of the years
Wow.
could be anchored. Now that divine plan of the years, and that came in because it became clear that there was no possibility of an ascension in 2012.
Yeah. Yeah.
There might
Yeah.
have been, had humanity acted differently. But we also have a lot of fallen forces at work.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
And 2021 was another possibility for ascension, which is part of why 2020 was like, because we're
Yes.
feeling
Yes.
I'm talking about, this is like a galactic timing thing, not something
Yeah.
that we set up.
That's right.
No, they say 2030 is another
Yep.
possibility.
Yep. Yep.
So we're working at that now.
Yes.
But
Yeah. Cool. Antares Code. So
okay.
so I understand that you can have your Antares Code read. And when I heard you talk about that with David, I almost thought, oh, is that like your galactic birth chart? Because we have a birth chart here that we do through astrology. You can put in your date of birth and all of that, and then you figure out what's your rising and what's your moon sign, all of those things, right? Is the Antares Code like that?
It does come through an astrological radix. But you're really reading it from the stars and your own cosmic history, and looking kind of at your galactic DNA and where your consciousness has been and what does it want to do in this incarnation
Yep.
to bring in, and also to raise the octaves of. Although this incarnation, honestly, we're all at a point where we're pulling in all our karmic timelines. We're all working for ourselves individually, but we're working collectively.
Yes.
So there's a wonderful, what you've got really embedded in, it's the stars that come through the planets and the cusps and all that. But what those stars are the energy patterns and the stories. And you can see the themes that it kind of defines yourself. What are you
Okay.
complicit in? Where is your strength? Where is your weakness? It's so incredible because it touches into the essence. I read Antares codes, and everybody has a different galactic face. It's fascinating, but it touches into the roots of things. And so the myths show us relational patterns. Relational patterns and cosmic laws exist steadily, but they're understood or expressed on the different frequencies or dimensions differently.
Yes.
When you get to the relational patterns as shown through cosmic myth, it's our relational patterns, but there's something about them. They snap up, wake up something in you and you're like,
Right.
that's my theme. You get it, but it's
Yeah.
not. it's not so terrible because it's weird when you get into the seventh dimensional telling of it somehow. It it's not, it's personal, but it's not. I mean, you may be crying and you may be in grief for 3 months from something you realize, but it pulls karmic knots apart.
Right. Wow.
That's Beatrix's deepest dream, to have worked at the roots of our pain patterns and really unravel them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're doing that from the perspective of our cosmic history, because we not only have individual karmas, we have species karmas. Really, the fact that
Yeah.
we as cosmic humans pushed out all the stellar nations, the first ones we pushed out were the dragons, because we had control of the elements as humans and they did. And we were jealous. I mean, probably the wars
Wow.
on the earth, the dinosaurs and the extinction of the dinosaur and supposedly a meteorite hit, that's probably the war of the elements between the humans and the dragons.
Yes.
When
Wow.
that happened, I mean, that's Gaia fell in dimension when that happened. The earth just cried out. A big rent happened in the
Wow.
Pacific Ocean. All the stellar nations went to the center of the planet. I mean, we've essentially been living without the truth of what our circulatory system is.
Yes.
So what I'm going to say is, if you could think of the stars as like cells in your light body, right?
Yeah.
And they have all kinds of information and they're streaming along with, it's your nervous system, and there's patterning because you have the unicorn patterning and it's all you.
Yeah.
Um, so we've been living without that broader knowledge. We've just had a very small planetary knowledge. We've been living without half of ourselves because we also pushed out the feminine.
That's
And
right.
that's the story of the great felines and the dragons, because
Yes.
they're two warrior nations. And the great felines are the yin warrior nation, the feminine, they're the fighting style there, and they're both body codes, very aware through the body, but the fighting style there is to feel it from within. You know how a cat waits,
Yes.
the strategy. Whereas so it's very yin, whereas the dragon is much more yang, and it's very much like the martial arts. There's a great mastery needed. There's 8
Yes.
initiations. And as I said, the first 4 are into the elements. But the 5th element is actually the balance of all that motion. Oh, that's where I was going with that. The great dragon commander, Khan, that was his star. He was the commander of all the elements, the commander of that nation. It was appropriate to have a commander. It wasn't a hierarchy in a bad way. It was because that part of us is trying to achieve something, and it's standing up for something really important, divine law, divine order, guarding that. But literally, that that commander of all the elements went crazy, went power hungry, failed his initiation on Vega. Now, you could also say, well, maybe that happened because the stellar nations no longer had all these 13 parts of ourselves,
Yes.
no longer had an ecosystem to live in. We weren't containing them. So there's like rogue elements out here and there.
Mm.
So anyway, Khan went power hungry, crazy. And at the same time, whenever something happens in the galaxy, anything happens in life, a vibration goes out, right? So
Yes.
when Khan went power hungry, it was like the vibration that went into all sentient consciousness. Oh, we could have power. What do we want to do? So
Yeah.
we started that's part of the polarization, right? Some
Yeah.
aspect
Yeah.
chose a lot of power and misuse of it. But at any rate, at that point, the great feline nation, which is charged with guarding free will, really, and sovereignty, it for that reason also guards the winged lion, who are the leader part of ourselves that can just run the divine.
Yeah.
But if a leader goes despotic, the great feline is for the people. Oh, such a fierce determination.
Wow. Wow.
But they're also felines. So back in if we take it all relatively I don't the thing about the Antares Code is when you stand in the middle of it, you're in a hologram and it breaks down any time. All the themes
Okay.
come across.
Okay.
But now if we take it in a time sense of sequence, before we matured in knowing light and dark, and had a nativity about dark, the great felines, they heard that power hungry vibration, not as a power way, but they got
Yeah.
restive.
Yeah.
And they thought, well, nobody should be in charge. They were really the heart of a true Aquarian democratic principle, but we weren't developed for it yet.
Okay.
So they started, as cats are very independent, they started breaking away and feeling like nobody understands. We should we should rebel against even guarding the winged lion because nobody should be in charge. Let's have a democracy, essentially. So they went to a certain star and started congregating and talking and feeling very special. Well, the dragons approached them at that point on the order of Khan to try to start love affairs. And of course, there was a great elemental attraction between these two forces. And there was some genuine love there, but a lot of it was just usury by the dragons.
Yes.
So there was a star Sheraton where the pillow talk happened and all the secrets of how the great
Oh,
field, where they guarded, what they did. So there
wow.
was a totally unscrupulous attack against the great felines and the winged lions, so low because with the dark shadow alliances had started combining their gifts. So with the invisibility shield of an angel, the power of the dragon came in. Now the winged lion actually knew this was coming, but elected to die with the light alive inside of itself, because had it met that attack on the low octave, it would have just gone low octave. But that was the first time that dark was defeated by the light. And that was like a wake-up call. But what happened is all the great felines massively killed or chased out of the galaxy into the Andromeda galaxy. So we have literally the whole galaxy tilted young after that. And we didn't have a lot of great feline influence. A lot of their stellar worlds were a lot weaker. Their body codes, if you were born with a lot of body codes in the great feline, you can have body problems. The other thing
Okay.
that happened is there were hybrid children born because Khan thought
Yes.
that this will make the perfect warrior. And it didn't really work like that. And the mothers, if there were mothers left, they were terrified of those children because they were
Okay.
afraid they were afraid the dragon aspect would come out.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of hybrids killed, some of them making it to the Andromeda galaxy, and other ones literally just roaming the galaxy alone, kind of
Ah,
hiding. They had nowhere,
yeah.
they had no parents, they
Yeah.
had no mother.
Wow.
But the point of all this, even in me telling you that story, can you feel that there's patterns there? Oh, if you have a deep pattern of feeling abandoned or not understood
Yeah.
or having no place, you might have a codes as a hybrid or one of those. You may,
Yeah.
have a lot of body problems because a lot of your soul aspects are way off in the Andromeda
Yeah.
galaxy,
Yeah.
and you're not getting, because the stars in the great feline haven't been as populated by soul aspects, the information and radiation is a little weaker. Now, all that's changed because, and I did do videos about this this is the return of the healed great feline. So much happened in the Andromeda galaxy. There's a new energy pattern, basically,
Yeah.
and the healed dragon, because when Khan went rogue, it's like a lot of dragons followed their commander thinking they were doing the
Yes.
right thing, but later realized, oh my God, or else they went with pure power hunger.
Yes.
So, I mean, there was a few who didn't go, but then they were killed. But in a way,
Yeah.
their soul lasted longer
That's
because they
right.
didn't have, there's been so many, patterns and lifetimes and trajectories
Yeah.
of guilt and whatever. But there's a whole new pattern that's happened for the dragons. it's absolutely beautiful. So
Yes, yes.
what I could say without getting, because each is a long story, but those new energy patterns are what are trying to impress on us this year. And it's the warrior in a way that we can't even understand, the highest aspect of it. And the new warrior pattern is not about fighting this against that like your opponent. It's when you come to a challenge or an opponent, it's about looking into yourself to say, how can I raise the octave of my command of the elements to make myself better so that I can serve to hold divine will, and
Wow.
I can stay in the center. What new warriors are able to do is actually literally alchemicalize the shadow. It's like they use it as a nutritive force,
Yeah.
and they can stand in the center in a sustained way. So essentially, they're operating in a fifth dimensional consciousness or
Yes.
more, because they're not going back and forth with polarities.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
the third dimension, the law of polarity is total yin yang, equal
Yeah.
opposite. You
Yes.
do something big light, it's going to be big dark. I mean, the most we can do is lean towards the light. But when
Yes.
we
Yes.
get to the fifth dimension, sixth dimension, the laws of polarity change, and the increasing light decreases the catalytic shadow.
Yeah.
It's still there. It's not, I'm not judging it, but it's just a whole different operational
Yeah.
game.
Yeah. Wow. Awesome. Wow, that was wonderful. That was loaded. So much information and such good information. So Leslie, I am there were a few, as I said, there were a few things we wanted to talk about. We talked about the Antares Code, 13 stellar nations. You gonna name them? Or are
I've
we can
mentioned them. I can. I mean, we've got the unicorns, the angels, the Pegasus, the dragons, the great felines, the bears, the male and female serpent, the cosmic human, the birds, the dolphins, the whales. I'm probably missing something.
That's okay. I didn't count. That's okay. If you it's all right. I just kind of wanted to
Oh, the
read.
arthropods. Oh my gosh, the
Yes, that's
arthropods.
right. The arthropods. I've heard. That's right. Well, thank you for telling us about who
Oh,
they
and the
are
dragons
specific.
and the great felines, of course. Yeah,
Yes. It was just important. I wanted to emphasize it like that because there are 13 stellar nations, and I wanted to our audience to hear it exactly specifically what there is, because there's a lot of information, and so just to focus on them.
right. But they do carry codes. Like for instance, I just said that the dragon and the great felines carry your warrior codes.
Yes.
We've got teacher codes with the teachers of the heart with the bears, teachers of knowledge really with the what do you call it? Male serpents. And we've got healers with the dragons and
Yes.
with the female serpents. So there's teaching, healing. They're the codes that we are as people.
Yes. Yes.
So we learn to, as we embody the galactic myths, it's really like you're seeing your light body, and you're starting to understand it has a coherency. And at a certain point, you can flip your perspective
Yes.
from your physical from just being this. It's more like you understand that you're the light body that has this distillate going. And it really is like the star that was discovered in 2020, where, oh, okay, you realign, get your fate back, your divine destiny. You get the ability to hold the fifth dimension, and then you look back down and work with the third dimension, but you're not working with it in a polarized way anymore,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that's the highest aspect of the warrior. They
Yep.
use themselves, they use their opponent or any opposing force to develop themselves to hold that position.
Yeah.
And then in holding that position, they can have the strength to arbitrate and bring down the non-polarized field. And, since it's all energy, it's a different way of working and bringing in,
Yeah.
you know,
Hmm.
meaning it's very, very important that, I mean, that you hear the word light workers and, what you do. What we do on an energetic frequency level is very important. And each one of us is like a sovereign island that we are asked to master.
Wow.
And then if we
Allah.
master it in ourselves, we resonate enough to pull in others who want to be like feel that sentient. I
Yeah,
talked about how there's how a vibration goes out into sentient beings. So
yeah.
you're going to amass your own, people are going to be attracted to you based on where your resonances have developed.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's evident, I think, because and it's interesting that you say sovereign. What did you say? Your sovereign self, your sovereign island is what you just said now.
Probably something like that,
Yeah,
because
and
that's all we have control over.
that's
But
right. That's right. And that's been the theme, I feel, from 2020. I felt that there was that theme of sovereignty. Everything that was put in front of us was like, what, like, we were really working at keeping our sovereignty or maintaining that and coming into that sovereign space. Because we had options put before us, we had people fighting about an option, and yeah, whilst that was that was what was happening, but there were greater things happening from, you really had to come into yourself and look within yourself and listen to the voice within you as to how you're going to navigate life, or what you will take and what you won't. That I just found where we are, that was put in front of us, and
oh
it was
yeah,
just,
I
and
think
it was like,
all around the world.
yeah, and it was just like, really, for me, I was seeing it already. Oh, I think, what is my guidance system saying about this? How do I feel about it? It was just very important. And I think sovereignty was a big thing there, or big theme, and it's been coming through over and over again. And I think you have to, when I think about it, I think that is the key. As soon as we came into that, we started to feel all these other energies that were coming through, and starting to realize, especially now, I know my world's different in terms of, I've got lesser friends, but I also understand that those people that are around me are the ones that are coming to me, that are attract. It's what I'm putting out in the energetic field that's bringing them into
Exactly.
me, and that's,
Exactly.
and so
Right.
therefore I'm okay, because I'm with that. I'm okay with losing friends. Um, we always wanted to have our friends close to us. People have been friends for 30, 40 years, and we love knowing we've been friends with somebody for so long. But this was a time where even that started to change, right? Um, and it was always about sovereignty and what we were going to believe, how we were going to navigate forward. So the Kazemi was a term that was used a lot. Please, I know we're having a lot of Kazimis at the moment, and they're very important Kazimis. So please tell us what a Kazemi is.
Well, a cazimi is when the sun comes into conjunction with a planet. There's some usually within less than a degree. They may not be the same degree, but they're literally, it's almost like the sun is in, those two consciousnesses are infusing each other with information. So what I noticed this year, we've had a string of Kazimis. That's what David Farrell and I have spoken about. But in the context of the Stellar Nations stories, there's an interesting story there, because our sun, named Solana, is an eighth Pleiadian star, who as an angel star in another Aquarian age was analogous to being a teenager in development, and just had that roiling energy of, looked at his father Atlas, thought he just stood there. I don't want to do that. So anyway, he roiled and roiled enough to actually break orbit. And he was absolutely thrilled at first, but when you break your fate, you lose some of your consciousness. So he started falling from the sixth dimension, caught himself on the edge of the fourth, very much realized what happened, shame, big cosmic blanket, astral fog around him. That's why we have an astral fog around Earth when we're born, because everything's mimicking.
Yes.
But at any rate, eventually, at another time in the photon belt, the whisperings of his Pleiadian family reached him. They were always crying out to him, and his heart just opened. And the Galactic Council had had mercy on him, and he was willing to accept it. He was given essentially the opportunity to work his fate back by setting up our solar system, and he imagined the planets to be either parts of his own psyche or his Pleiadian family. So with these Cazimi stories, I was talking about, wow, we're coming to another Aquarian age. And it's like our sun is visiting each part of his psyche or his family with his Cazimis. because there's a sort of a retrospection that's happening,
Yeah.
that taking stock. What have I done? Wow. What do I need to amend to? What do I need to understand from this? And I want to go forward, with a feeling of reconciliation and love, really, in the end. So that's the premise that I've done those shows with David on, and we're about to come to a Venus Cazimi in June,
Yes.
which is uh, which is a beautiful, incredible note, which
Yes.
we'll get to.
Yeah,
I
of
won't talk about
course.
it now.
I
Um,
want to say, when you talk about the sun and it's it being the eighth Pleiadian star and its journey, and at the moment it's for want of a, well, I'll just say it's on the journey to redemption, redeeming itself from where it was, and creating the out and doing it through creating our universe, our galaxy, right? Um,
actually, our solar system.
our solar
So our
system.
solar system has been kind of a
Yeah.
um,
Okay. Right.
closed because of that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when we were in the dark night, any stellar influence had to come through the gate of the sun. So like one at a time, if it hit on our Jupiter, we felt it. So we were
Yes.
not feeling the vastness of our soul particles. But that's changed. Our
Yes.
sun's not the sole arbitrator anymore because we've come into the photon belt.
Yes.
So his role as conductor is changing.
Okay.
Although now, I mean, now he's really realizing, as we need to realize, it's not a static thing to run creation through you. It's actually the fifth virtue of the dragon. It's what Khan was given. He was meant to be master of the balance of motion of all
Wow.
creation coming
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
And then and that guards divine will, and that's what we lost. I mean, we've been living without the feminine, without all our parts, without really knowing what divine will is or free will is, and all that's needing to come back online. But why I feel that it's so helpful to have the stellar nations as myths, because embedded in all this is really the inherent, there's just basic cosmic laws.
Yes.
Like we're ready to start to live inside an ecosystem of cosmic laws that we respect. We can use our free will completely inside that, but we're an example on Earth now how we just trample the ecosystems. We don't understand.
That's
We don't
right. Yeah.
follow any kind of, respect or laws.
Yeah.
But if we let the cosmic laws be our ecosystem, we can be totally free inside of that
Yeah. Yeah.
and yet have balance.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and the cosmic laws are laced throughout the stellar nations. You see it in the stories and the relational
Yeah.
dynamics, and also the new book that just came out in English. Stunning. Oh my God, what a history. Stellar Destinies 1 and 2. It's
Okay.
another like 800-page book, but it's such a good read.
Yeah.
You're reading about
2008.
the Orion and
Yeah.
Sirius and Lemuria,
Yes. Yes.
Atlantis, and all the Pleiadian stars in detail.
Really
You're
beautiful. Yeah. I was looking through on their website last night, just going through and looking at all the books, and I just thought, oh my gosh, this is my next point of learning, because I want to know about Lemuria and Atlantis. I'm hearing it from other people, but I want to know for myself. I want to know about Sirius, Orion, and Andromeda.
it's important. So much has
It's so
happened
important.
there.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And
And
I'm
so,
like, oh, Orion is it's like the master system kind of, where the divine mind comes through and Bellatrix
yeah,
holds the library of, and I mean, sorry, Betelgeuse, but every star kind of has a purpose, and it's almost like a synapse in the nervous system where the
yeah,
divine comes through and has, I don't want to use the analogy computer rooms. I have to find a better analogy. Synapse, nervous system. It all comes through and kind of radiates out to different parts of
yeah.
the galaxy. It's like a transfer station for the divine mind. But then, the dragons and the fallen ones literally obliterated Orion for a long time.
That's right.
So
That's right.
all that's in our cosmic history. These are patterns that we're literally, this is what we need to clear now. It's,
Yeah. And this is what I was wanting to say. I feel like we're taking the same journey as our sun is taking. Individually, we are doing the same thing that the
exactly.
sun
And
is
that was
doing,
my
right?
point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm hearing that when I was listening to you, I'm hearing that's what we are taking that individual journey. And it makes sense that we're doing that because our sun is doing that, creator of our solar system. It just like it's wonderful. I love the sun. I love him even more than I've all loved him ever before because you kind of brought that home. And I'm feeling there's nothing without the sun.
Well, and it's a point of consciousness. It's another
Exactly.
star.
Yeah, yeah,
We're all on the sun. It's a gate.
yeah,
We
yeah,
literally come through it at our birth,
yeah.
where when we come through the ethereal birth canal, we have our remembering field. We kind of consolidate. It's explained in the books. We consolidate at the sun. The sun is like our parent. The sun has records on us. The sun is
Exactly.
watching. The
Yeah.
sun is rooting for us because the sun doesn't fulfill its going back. There's more than the ascension of our consciousness. I mean, although, Earth was chosen by the sun as the planet of redemption for all this to happen on.
Yes.
But the whole idea is really for a galactic rearrangement. It's bigger than just like a fifth dimensional Earth, because
Yes.
I don't know what it'll look like, but our sun wants to have, it's a Pleiadian star. It wants to have more connection again. Now, I don't know if it literally means it moves across the galaxy, or I don't know if it's just rerouting of frequencies that all of a sudden it's a whole different experience for the sun. We don't know, but
No, we
we
don't
sort of,
know. We have to take the journey to find out, right? Whatever's next, whatever's going to come through, and how we're going to awaken more and more to whatever is next. Because awesome, Leslie. I think we will stop this conversation today.
yes, I agree with you.
Uh,
We've said a
uh,
lot.
we've said a lot, and it's what is. There's no that is what it is, and I'm really glad that we had this conversation. We can talk more about again how it feels, whether you want to come back, but we'll talk about that offline. Um, so everybody, thank you so much for joining us, for listening, for staying tuned through this, because it is I realize that it's something that is it's intense, but it's also opening us up in terms of our thinking and how we're feeling. And if you feel galactic and if you feel more and more in tune with your galactic self, this is the thing to be listening to. This is the topic to be listening to, the stellar nations and all of that which Leslie and David have been putting out. That was like amazing for me. I started to get really excited when I realized that I have a connection to the trees and how it is, or the elementals, because I think one of them, I think it was the third one that you were third interview you did, or chat that you did with David, was talking about all of that connection. So everybody, I'm going to encourage you to go and listen to those videos. We will put the links in the description box. We'll put the links to the Stellar Nation YouTube channel in there as well, because Leslie has done quite a few videos on there talking about this, giving us almost, an online teaching, really, if I think about it, because you're showing slides and things like that, right, Leslie, even
Right,
the ones that
yes, and
David.
I've just started building that out. I actually have done 15 audiovisual classes. I mean, you're speaking to David and you're hearing us talk about it. If anybody does feel interested, there's the books, or I
Yes,
did the audiovisual classes where you literally go through, they're an hour to two at a time for the nations, going through the stellar pathway and the whole story. But embodying the story, I think what we really need to take from this is we have to move beyond a planetary consciousness. And the stellar consciousness, we can recode to the stellar consciousness. And then with that, we really understand that we live in this very intelligent, conscious universe and that we're part of it, or galaxy, or creation. So, and it's just the time for that. And it makes us whole different beings. We're in transformation. But what I
yes,
like about the stellar nations and these stories is ultimately, it's all about us finding it in ourselves for ourselves. It's what wakes up in you with these stories. So it's not, you can go to someone and get a good reading, and that's great. I'm not putting that down because we have very many talented people. But this is a way really to wake up your own remembering field.
yeah,
And yes, you can get the Antares Code read, and I do that as a guide, but I even try to do it as a way so that you're empowered to know how to look at your code, because literally you're waking up these parts of yourself and giving them a language to talk to you in. Like, I can't tell you, it's very magical, much more synchronistic way to live, because you've got all these pictures and relational dynamics and stories, and you're going through things, and you might have a decision to make, and suddenly, like, something drops in and you're just like, it's from your stellar self. It could be a picture, it could be something that happened on a star, it could be how you literally feel about the star. You feel like you can walk into these worlds. It's like having a huge backyard.
Yeah, yeah,
But
exactly.
so what I'm saying is they drop in because we give those aspects of ourselves a way to talk to us here. And then it's so quick. Oh gosh, I'm not going to do that. Like I used to take 10 months to just make one decision. Now I'm kind of like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Leslie, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming to talk with me, but thank you because this is my next level. This is my wish and dream come true. And, I've always felt galactic even before people were talking about it. And now I feel like I'm on the precipice of figuring out, learning more about my galactic self, and this is next level. Really, this is the absolute right time, and it's next level. I say for myself, but I think for many, many people on the planet,
Well, for
this is
many
next
people.
level.
In fact,
Yeah.
yeah, and we're not going to have it in these show notes, but I'm a couple of weeks away from having a satellite website, which with a forum, because so many people where we can discuss and I can have
Yes.
calls. But so many people have caught on to it now. But that's because we're waking up. There are some of us who really said, we're going to come here and help this happen.
Yes.
And
Yes.
this is one of the methodologies. I mean, I know there's other ones too. This is the Stellar Nations was shown around 2000. Bayanonico were shown. They're the ninth temple. I don't know how many there are now, but they're literally great arcs of light that like by their frequency help raise that's a bit, I can't describe it better than that, but
That's
it's like
okay.
it's like creating a frequency that creates an arc that is like a boat that rises,
Rises, yes. With
So
with this amazing light. And it's next level. It's next level. And I just think that we're ready. Many of us have been waiting for a long time. And now that it's come into our space. And other people are doing different things, and that's all relative and relevant.
well, good, yeah.
It's all good.
You
It's all good.
resonate. You all have we have our own,
Yeah,
this isn't for everybody, but if your soul leaps at it, it might be.
exactly.
And it's so funny because it's getting light. The sun is pouring through here and I'm getting darker and darker. It's funny how shadow and light works.
Yes, interesting. Well, thank you, Leslie. You stay tuned there, and I will turn off the recording very shortly as I've said goodbye after saying goodbye to everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you so much. And we'll catch you next time here on the Great Awakening Generator. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.